The first signs came from the quantum detection array in Luna Base. Dr. Maya Rodriguez watched as the readings spiked beyond anything she'd seen in her 15 years of deep space monitoring. The void between Mars and Earth rippled like disturbed water, and through these ripples emerged vessels that defied human engineering. Massive structures that gleamed with an inner light, each larger than Earth's largest cities. "This can't be right," she muttered, adjusting her instruments. But the readings remained steady. The ships, 12 in total, arranged themselves in a perfect dodecahedron formation around Earth. Their presence immediately triggered every defense system humanity had established since the space age began. Within hours, the first transmission arrived. It bypassed all encryption, appearing simultaneously on every screen connected to a network. The message was clear and left no room for misinterpretation. To the species designated as human, the Dominion extends its greeting. Your civilization has been monitored and deemed worthy of absorption. You have 30 Earth days to submit to integration. Resistance will result in immediate termination of your species. The global response was chaos, but in the depths of the Quantum Research Institute beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Rodriguez noticed something peculiar in the transmission data. The aliens hadn't bothered to mask their signal's underlying structure. Why would they? To them, humanity was primitive, barely worth the effort of conquest. But that arrogance would prove to be their undoing. Within the quantum signature of their communication, Maya discovered patterns that shouldn't exist. Neural patterns, broadcasting on frequencies that suggested their entire species' consciousness operated on a unified quantum field. Working with Dr. James Chen of the Asian Coalition's Advanced Physics Division, she began to understand the full implications. They're not just communicating, she explained during an emergency meeting of the Global Science Council. They're existing on these frequencies. Their entire consciousness, their very ability to think and process information, depends on maintaining quantum coherence across these specific bands. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. Admiral Sarah Hassan, the highest-ranking military official present, leaned forward. "Are you suggesting they've made themselves vulnerable by their own advancement?" Maya nodded, bringing up a holographic display of the neural pattern analysis. Their evolutionary path led them to develop a shared consciousness, probably as a means of achieving perfect unity. But in doing so, they've created a critical weakness. Their minds are literally broadcast across specific quantum frequencies. Can we disrupt these frequencies? The Admiral's question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Dr. Chen spoke up, his voice steady despite the weight of what he was about to suggest. Theoretically, yes, a properly tuned quantum disruption field could effectively blank their consciousness while leaving their physical forms intact. They would become empty shells, their minds erased from the quantum field they depend on. The silence that followed was deafening. Someone finally voiced what everyone was thinking. "We're talking about the mental annihilation of an entire species." Maya stood, her hands steady as she manipulated the holographic display to show the Dominion ships in orbit. "They've given us no choice. Our long-range sensors have detected more ships entering the solar system. They're not just sending a military force, they're bringing their entire civilization, confident in their victory. And according to the data embedded in their transmission, we're not the first. Dozens of species have faced this choice before us. The difference is, we're the first to find their weakness." As the council debated the moral implications, Maya's tablet chimed with new data from the lunar array. More ships were emerging from the quantum ripples, massive generation ships carrying billions of the Dominion's people. They were already beginning their invasion, so certain of their success that they didn't bother to wait for humanity's response. The council's deliberation was interrupted by Admiral Hassan's commanding voice. How long would it take to develop this disruption field? With global cooperation and resources, Dr. Chen calculated quickly. 2 weeks to develop the technology, another week to deploy it across the solar system. Then we have no time to waste, the Admiral declared. Because something tells me they won't wait the full 30 days if they sense we're developing a defense. As Maya left the council chamber, she looked up at the night sky where the Dominion ships hung like new stars. Their arrogance in assuming humanity was primitive had given Earth its only chance at survival. Now the question was whether humanity could bear the weight of what they would have to do to survive. The underground facility beneath Mount Cheyenne hummed with activity as the world's brightest minds raced against time. Dr. Maya Rodriguez hadn't slept in 36 hours, but the quantum readings on her screen kept her more alert than any amount of caffeine could. Each new data point revealed more about the Dominion's consciousness network, and with each revelation, the true scope of what they were attempting became clearer. The quantum field operates on a frequency we never even considered possible, she explained to the assembled team of international scientists. It's not just communication, it's a shared reality. Every member of their species exists simultaneously as an individual and as part of their collective consciousness. Dr. Chen manipulated the holographic display, showing the intricate patterns of the Dominion's neural network. Their technology, their ships, even their weapons, everything is integrated into this quantum field. It's their greatest achievement, and potentially their downfall. The prototype quantum disruptor sat in the center of the lab, a deceptively simple device about the size of a basketball. Its crystalline surface pulsed with a soft blue light as it generated test frequencies. They had already proven the concept would work. A small sample of Dominion biological material, retrieved from a probe they'd sent to scan Earth, had its neural patterns completely erased when exposed to the correct frequency. But the implications of scaling this technology to solar system size were staggering. Lieutenant Commander Patel, their military liaison, voiced the concern everyone shared. What happens to their ships when we activate this? We can't have massive vessels suddenly dropping out of orbit onto population centers. Maya brought up new simulations on the main screen. Their ships are partially organic, grown rather than built. They'll maintain basic functions, life support, artificial gravity, structural integrity. But anything requiring higher consciousness will cease. They'll essentially become floating shells. The room fell silent as security footage from orbit appeared on the screens. The Dominion's generation ships were still arriving, massive structures housing billions of their species. Each vessel carried families, children, entire communities, all of them linked into the quantum network that made them who they were. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their lead ethicist, spoke up from the back of the room. We've intercepted more of their internal communications. They genuinely believe they're offering us a gift. In their mind, absorption into their collective consciousness is the highest form of existence. They don't even have a concept for individual sovereignty. That doesn't justify what they're doing, Commander Patel countered, her voice firm. How many species have they absorbed or eliminated? How many civilizations have they ended because they couldn't accept that others might choose a different path? Maya turned from her console, facing the assembled team. We've detected something else in their transmissions. Their collective consciousness isn't just shared, it's enforced. Any member of their species who begins to develop truly independent thoughts is automatically corrected by the network. They're not just united, they're imprisoned in their own perfection. The implications hit everyone at once. They weren't just fighting for humanity's survival. They were potentially liberating countless minds from a form of existence that denied the very possibility of choice. A junior scientist raised his hand, his voice shaking slightly. The latest scans show they're beginning to deploy what appear to be integration nodes in high orbit. They're preparing to force us into their network, aren't they? They're not going to wait the full 30 days. Maya nodded grimly, which is why we need to accelerate our timeline. The quantum disruptor works, but we need to build enough of them to create a field that covers the entire solar system. And we need to do it before they realize what we're planning. Dr. Chen pulled up new schematics on the main display. We've simplified the design. With the resources of every major nation committed to this project, we can mass-produce the disruptors. But deployment will be the real challenge. We'll need to position them precisely to ensure complete coverage. And if we miss even a small section of their fleet, Commander Patil asked, then those ships could potentially shield the others, or worse, adapt to defend against the disruption. Maya answered, this has to be perfect, and it has to be total. We get one chance at this. As if to emphasize their deadline, the facility's sensors registered new quantum ripples forming beyond Mars. More Dominion ships were arriving, their certainty in their own superiority drawing their entire civilization into humanity's trap. Maya turned back to her console, focusing on refining the disruptor's frequency. They were about to do something that would be remembered for as long as their species existed, either as the moment humanity secured its freedom or as their last desperate act before extinction. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on everyone in the room. Drive 8 minutes to consciousness upload peak, Chen reported. Our network at 89% power and climbing. Maya, there's something else. We're detecting what appear to be variance patterns in their neural network. Some of their people, a very small percentage, are showing signs of resistance to the collective consciousness. Maya leaned forward, studying the data. They're not as unified as they pretend to be. Even after all this time, some of them still fight for individuality. 5 minutes to upload peak. Network at 93% power. The numbers raced each other across the screens. Power levels climbing as the Dominion prepared to absorb humanity into their collective. Maya watched both countdowns, knowing they were about to fundamentally change the course of not one but two civilizations. 3 minutes. Network at 95% power. Detecting first signs of integration field formation around Earth. Maya opened a channel to all human forces. This is Dr. Rodriguez. All units prepare for Operation Blackout. The moment the disruptors activate, we'll have millions of disabled ships to secure. Remember, their bodies will be alive but unconscious. We're not here to kill them. We're here to stop them. 2 minutes. Network at 97% power. Dominion consciousness upload at 94% and accelerating. The holographic display showed the integration field beginning to descend toward Earth's atmosphere, a shimmering curtain of quantum energy that would force humanity into the Dominion's shared consciousness. 1 minute. Network at 98% power. Dominion upload at 98%. Maya took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the activation control. They were about to do something unprecedented, not just defending against invasion, but fundamentally altering an entire species. The weight of that responsibility mixed with the desperate need to protect humanity. 30 seconds. Network at 99% power. Dominion upload reaching peak levels. The command center fell silent, every eye fixed on the displays showing humanity's fate hanging in the balance. The integration field grew stronger, reaching for Earth's surface like grasping fingers of light. 15 seconds. The final countdown echoed through the lunar command center. Maya's hand remained steady over the activation control as she watched the Dominion's integration field strengthen. Their vast consciousness network had reached its most vulnerable point, nearly their entire civilization linked together, preparing to force humanity into their collective. Network at full power, Dr. Chen announced. Dominion consciousness upload complete. Integration field at maximum strength. Maya took one final breath. May whatever gods exist forgive us, she whispered, and pressed the activation control. For a fraction of a second, nothing seemed to happen. Then, across the solar system, thousands of quantum disruptors activated simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. The shimmering integration field collapsed as if it had never existed. The geometric pattern of Dominion ships wavered, their perfect formation breaking apart as their unified consciousness shattered. Quantum disruption field stable and expanding. Chen reported, his voice tight with tension. Coverage at 100% of target area. Neural pattern disruption confirmed. On every screen, sensor readings showed the same thing. The complete collapse of the Dominion's shared consciousness network. Billions of minds, built on quantum coherence, simply ceased to exist while their bodies remained alive and functioning. Status of Dominion vessels. Maya demanded. Basic systems remain operational, Commander Patel reported. Life support, artificial gravity, structural integrity, all functioning. But anything requiring higher consciousness has shut down. They're just floating. The magnitude of what they'd just done began to sink in. They had not killed the Dominion people, not physically, but they had erased everything that made them who they were. Billions of bodies now drifted through space, alive but empty, their consciousness wiped from the quantum frequencies they depended on. Rescue teams deploying now, Patil announced. First reports coming in. Dominion crew members are in a vegetative state, physically healthy but completely unresponsive. Maya stared at the holographic display, watching as human ships approached the dormant Dominion vessels. They had won, but the victory felt hollow. Begin full scan of all Dominion ships, she ordered. Priority on their database systems. There might be a way to. She was interrupted by an urgent alert from one of the sensor stations. Dr. Rodriguez, we're detecting active neural patterns. Weak, but definitely present. Maya rushed to the station. Chen close behind her. The readings were clear, scattered throughout the Dominion fleet. A few thousand individuals showed signs of consciousness, but these patterns were different from the Dominion's usual unified signal. The resistors, Chen breathed. The ones who fought against the collective consciousness. They must have developed some natural resistance to the quantum frequency they were forced to use. When we disrupted the network, we freed them, Maya finished. How many? Initial estimates suggest around 10,000 individuals, the sensor operator reported, scattered throughout their fleet. Their neural patterns are completely individualistic, no sign of the collective consciousness structure. A message came through from one of the rescue teams. Command, this is Rescue Team Alpha. We've made contact with conscious Dominion members. They're thanking us. Say they've been trapped in the collective for generations, unable to break free. They're offering to help us care for their people. Maya sank into a chair, the weight of the past few weeks finally catching up to her. They had done something terrible in the name of survival, but in doing so, they had also liberated a precious few who had maintained their individuality against overwhelming odds. Begin full documentation of everything, she ordered. Every detail, every decision, every consequence. Humanity needs to remember this, both what we were capable of doing and why we felt we had to do it. The rescue operation continued as human ships docked with Dominion vessels, securing them and tending to their crews. The survivors, those few who had maintained their individual consciousness, began sharing their story. They spoke of generations of enforced unity, of the suppression of any thought that diverged from the collective, of the countless civilizations they had been forced to help absorb or destroy. Dr. Rodriguez, Commander Patel called out softly. Long-range sensors are picking up something. More quantum ripples, but different from the Dominion's signatures. Multiple sources, multiple patterns. Maya looked up at the main display as new data streamed in. Other civilizations, hidden from the Dominion, were responding to the sudden silence of their oppressors. Humanity had not just defended itself, they had changed the balance of power in their corner of the galaxy. Send out a broadcast, Maya ordered. Let them know what happened here. Let them know that humanity stands ready to help rebuild, to find a way forward that respects both unity and individuality. And let them know that we will never, ever submit to forced integration. As the message was prepared, Maya looked out the command center's window at Earth, still blue and beautiful despite everything that had happened. They had survived, but the cost would haunt them forever. The question now was what they would build from this terrible victory. 6 months after Operation Blackout, Earth's orbital space had transformed. The massive Dominion ships now served as research stations and temporary homes for both humans and the consciousness-retained Dominion survivors. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of what had once been the Dominion's command vessel, watching shuttles move between the ships like fireflies in the night. The neural regeneration trials are showing promise, Dr. Chen reported, joining her at the window. The modified quantum frequencies are allowing some of the affected Dominion to regain basic consciousness. It's not their original shared consciousness, but they're waking up as individuals, Maya finished. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Those they had saved would never again experience the unity that had defined their civilization for millennia. The door slid open, admitting Carl, one of the consciousness-retained Dominion. Unlike their still unconscious brethren, Carl and the other survivors had always maintained a degree of independence from the collective consciousness, which had ultimately saved them from the quantum disruption. The other species representatives have arrived, Carl announced. Their physical appearance, tall, iridescent, and graceful, remained unchanged, but their manner was markedly different from the rigid uniformity the Dominion had once displayed. They're waiting in the conference chamber. Maya nodded, gathering her tablets. In the months since the Dominion's defeat, 17 previously unknown civilizations had made contact with Earth. Some had been hiding from the Dominion for centuries. Others had been preparing their own resistance. All had been drawn by humanity's unprecedented victory. The conference chamber, once the Dominion's strategic command center, now hosted delegates from across the galaxy. Maya took her seat at the circular table, noting the diversity of forms and technologies represented. These were the survivors, the resistors, the ones who had refused to be absorbed. The recovery efforts continue, Maya began, addressing the assembled delegates. We've successfully stabilized 98% of the Dominion fleet. Their bodies remain in stasis while we work on consciousness restoration. But that's not why we're here today. She activated the holographic display, showing a map of known space. We've confirmed that the Dominion's influence extended far beyond our region. There are dozens, possibly hundreds of other civilizations out there, either hiding or already absorbed. We have a responsibility to help them. A delegate from the Centauri Collective, a species that had hidden in deep space for 3 centuries, spoke up. You're proposing a mission of liberation, using the quantum disruption technology. No, Maya said firmly. What we did was necessary for survival, but it can never become our standard response. We're proposing something different. A coalition of free species, working together to prevent any single civilization from forcing its will upon others. Carol stepped forward. Those of us who maintained our individuality within the Dominion know its deepest secrets. There are fail-safes, backup systems, possibly even auxiliary consciousness networks we haven't discovered yet. The threat isn't completely eliminated, which is why we need to work together, Maya continued, not through forced unity like the Dominion, but through voluntary cooperation. We each maintain our independence while sharing knowledge, resources, and protection. The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates considered the implications. Humanity, barely known in the galaxy 6 months ago, was proposing to help lead an alliance of free species. Their demonstration of both power and restraint, devastating in defense but focused on preservation rather than destruction, had earned them a unique position. There's something else, Chen added, bringing up new data. The quantum frequencies we've been studying, the ones the Dominion used for their collective consciousness, they're not natural to their species. They were artificially imposed, probably millennia ago. The Dominion itself might have been the product of an even older civilization's attempt at forced unity. The revelation sent murmurs through the chamber. Maya stood, looking at each delegate in turn. We stand at a crossroads. We can either let the fear of what happened drive us apart, or we can build something new. A community of civilizations that celebrates both unity and diversity. She gestured to the stars visible through the chamber's windows. Out there, right now, countless species live in fear of absorption or extinction. We have the power to help them, not by forcing our way upon them, but by showing them there's another path. The discussion continued for hours as the delegates debated the proposal. In the end, the vote was unanimous. The Alliance of Free Species was born, with Earth serving as one of its founding members. It was a new chapter in galactic history, written by those who had dared to resist uniformity. As Maya left the chamber later, she paused at the observation deck one final time. The Dominion ships no longer appeared as threatening monoliths, but as monuments to both the cost of tyranny and the price of freedom. Humanity had faced extinction and survived, but more importantly, they had learned perhaps the most crucial lesson of all. The strength to defend oneself must be balanced with the wisdom to build something better from the aftermath of victory. In the vast darkness of space, ships from a dozen species moved together in harmony, each following their own path while working toward a common goal. It wasn't the perfect unity the Dominion had demanded, but perhaps it was something better. A unity born of choice, preserved by respect, and strengthened by diversity.